Hi, Daddy. We're going to begin with nicknames for desire in will testament. So much isn't on paper, so how can it be ruled? Begins with your name. So that if your birth certificate name says Burden Ernie Meyer, Myers was not the foundation of my final search in Club Med for Mirren. So I was looking at a society where Miss Mirren could even assign Club Med, which made the family the owner as not this other Peru. And that's about as far back as I remember to the farm site in Mount Calvary, Wisconsin, where Miss Shelley Long were accused of moving in modular housing builds. So, like, that wasn't the stabilizer in finding a modular or sided barn or reduction of silo as the states would begin to move which held canister to what arena of farming. That we didn't have hay, but we had hay bales. So it would be Robert J.R. R.J. Remember R.J. Incorporated? Well, he was Restoration Hardware, as it turned out, and he would make a skirt that I made it into that silly station wagon that in some gesture we never owned. But that I would make it in there, and then we had, 3 or 4 returns to the area. So we're talking about these nicknames that we made became a slogan or a canasta in the sky contest, and I prefer mine not mentioned. So that's the basis of the lives that I lived. To not mention. Where it is mentioned, so it is me and forever me. The situation starts out with a screen where the insurgent takes a mask to show the machinery and is not really there, though can control. So while I'm busying myself with the turmoil of finishing a site of notebook notes, I thought I would give you a ring, and hopefully not in Anaheim, California. I smoke. This is called Privateer, the good stuff. A 1-pound bag for underage sale prohibited. Anyway, it's under this place called Privateer, and for a long time I was looking for a Tombstone Pizza in a list. That Tombstone Pizza was really under Privateer, and they had one of those round smokers so that you could fire up the pizza outside. It didn't have to all be roasted cheese. It was actually round like a smoker, and they would hide their name so that they wouldn't have to produce so many at a time for frozen pizza in competition to the Swan truck, which were also a staple of finding out which truck delivered the dough to the freezer site and what they call, or want me to call, misery. So I have a will a living will or a last will due to use of facility device, and this is mostly at Legal Zoom, where I do mention Nicole Smith. That's the Shapiros. So the address and claim is at 1700 Block Prospect, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Around 2003 and 2005, 1-800-773-0888, Glendale, California. CEO John Suh, S-U-H, since 2007. Alright, so because it's the Shapiros, of course, I would fall asleep in my pillow to Daryl Strawberry in understanding how they can then decide that they're going to win a boat through a vegetative state each time I have a surgical marriage. That means I turned in the living will portion. It was offered for free to Dr. Ian Gilson over at Aurora Healthcare. Now, Ian had a site near this place called Metro Market in Milwaukee, and it was mostly his staff that had order of this giant Instaprint type copy machine, and somehow the toner would bezel. So that's what I was trying to start the conversation with earlier. A bezel meeting a brad hook on a tarp still isn't Mr. Clean, which did somehow meet H. Hammer and Armstrong. So I think that company was called Westclote. But what I needed to get a message to you about from the ruin site, where I were to grow up, was on TARP, T-A-R-R-P. It's like 2 programs. And so it's like these little specks of, yeah, that's it, spec, S-P-E-C, where they're in the generic type Clorox bleach, where Clorox is only 1. For some, bleach is what is in the pool site and then has detergent. Well, I just wanted to say that is a cleaner that works, but what is it? Because you need that for your speeches to understand the tarp speckles, okay? Inside the other name for Clorox makes it a different kind of bleach that cleans or takes away germs and better than Lysol, where Lysol would consider it. So that's all in what they call a choline. And so that was the confusion from the Yucatan. Either the life passage that this is all at Legal Zoom, we're finally situated to New York, where I had Traverse. It was the time of Anna Nicole Smith in the Dominican, in the news, where I had finalized a last will and paid several $100s just to finish with Mr. Shapiro, as he is entering claims where there is no respondent to addressee. Okay, so we're not friends, but there's that many of these Shapiros. And they would argue and so on that the will was free. So that means in transfer of living will, Dr. Ian Gilson would then transfer this file to Stanford and involve himself further in genetics. where they knew the actual location of my visit, New York, can simply call me and say, these are the results, or even by electronic mail. No one would do this hours in planning. And thus, I've lived on basically $776 a month my whole life. At some point, it is an exhaust to a bagel shop or neon cafe. It's a matter of, it's possible. And they took that too. As far as family lights, I kept most connection with Uncle Bill, some call him Billy, and his pen name is Dan Brown. Where your name meets Joesph, Issak, Kelly, they refuted the Williams site of Victoria and Veronica. So that VWV would meet WMMW or to cancel the estate parade, which parade also entered Tombstone. But what it really all finalized to was that the cereal box would contain a Cracker Jack box, and inside the cereal box was the sensor build. So that's what I was talking about, you making a refute at Kaiser Ford Lincoln and Mercury, or you know where to go, Kaiser roll, where you made the sensor, but you hid it in a hockey puck, and I said, I know. But what you're trying to say is that the mechanic, on-site vehicle place made the sensor. I said, he made the sensor, now what does he have to show in the lease? So it's like none of that is my business, or up until, was the Trump